So, we have been discussing SO3 and SU2, and we define generators as infinitesimal version of the group element near the origin of the parameter space. So, I just want to say again that we are dealing with continuous groups, which means that the elements of the group are quote parameterized by values from a continuous set. Okay, and what is meant by continuous set is a set which at least in some neighborhood is isomorphic to Rn, the n dimensional real numbers, and therefore it has all the connectivity and continuousness properties of Rn. We have not said anything more than that as far as parameters are concerned, and this is what is called topology. It just talks about connectedness of points. The set, the parameter set is not supposed to inherit the Pythagorean distance of Rn. That is not really required. In fact, we will find that for many of these parameter sets, the notion of distance is not good. In fact, it will hinder rather than help. And ultimately, therefore, the whole connection is that if you have understood the continuum nature of R, the real line, then Rn inherits that continuous property, and all the parameter sets we are talking about inherit that continuousness. So, this continuum properties, as we discussed, Cantor, Dedekind, all these people who generalize from rationals to continue to the whole real line R and so on. So, this is the idea of, this is the specific sense in which we mean continuous sets or continuous groups parameterized by such sets. So, we had this SO3 with exponential theta dot L. We also said that by some clever trick we could also write it at e raised to minus I theta dot j, where j are Hermitians. So, this turns out to be a 3 by 3 real representation. So, as we know, the minus I insertion is essentially fake, it is all real, but it has with it a 3-dimensional real carrier space the vector space V of physics, right, in 3 dimensions. And most importantly, these obey the algebra Ji, Jj, the generators which generate the group obey the algebra Ji, Jj equal to I epsilon Ijk Jk, and I will put this in a red box, and I am running slightly out of space below. I wanted to display both SO3 and SU2 on the same, which we will try to do now. So, SU2 basically was also exponent of, and we learnt I times theta times sigma by 2 dot some n cap. It has this form. The generic SU2 elements can be written out in this form. This we checked by checking. I'll just remind you how that came. But the point was, SU2 can be written like this. This is a 2 by 2 complex representation, because these are 2 by 2 matrices. Sigma are 2 by 2 matrices. You exponentiate them. It's a power series in powers of 2 by 2 matrices. So, it is also 2 by 2 matrix. So, this is 2 by 2 complex representation. In fact, okay, and it has a 2-dimensional complex carrier space, right. It has a 2-dimensional complex carrier space. the beauty of this construction is that the sigma by 2 matrices obey exactly the same algebra as the J's. Is exactly the same. And unlike the J, which were sort of fake complex because they were just I times some real matrices, the sigmas are essentially complex because two of the matrices are actually real. Sigma 3 and sigma 1 matrix are 1 minus 1, 1, 1 of diagonal, but the sigma 2 matrix is I minus I. So it is not matter of just multiplying all of them by some complex number. So these happen to be intrinsically complex, unlike J equal to I times L. So main conclusion we now make is that both SO3 and SU2 share the same algebra. So this leads to some interesting questions. What does SO3 do versus what does SU2 do? And what we are next going to try to prove is the homomorphism between SU2 and SO3. So to see this, we develop some specific concepts. One of them is the idea of a one parameter subgroup. So one parameter subgroup is so we say that a map or a mapping A from reals into GL and C. As we have agreed, most of the things we are going to do are essentially matrix groups. So we say specifically in context of this, is called a one parameter subgroup. We have already used this term before, but now we have now defined it specifically here, provided A is continuous A at 0 is equal to the identity element, right, because A is a map from reals to GL and C. We ensure that when you are at 0 on the real axis, you map into 1, and finally A of sum T plus S is equal to AT times AS by group multiplication. So the next thing we say is that if A is a one parameter subgroup, then there will always exist a unique matrix X then basically there is a unique X, so that you can recover all of A as exponentiation of that X. Such that A of t is equal to exponent of Tx or X is d by dt of A of t. Mathematicians don't like to insert i's at this point, and this is taken from a mathematics book. So I should tell you that to develop this course, I have gone between trying to be formal and mathematically rigorous, but also not lose track of the physics. Many physics books will just tell you all the juicy physics things without worrying too much about the maths. Whereas people who actually begin to worry about mathematics of Lie groups get sunk into doing that because it's quite involved. So if you want to strike a middle course, an interesting mathematics book is by Brian C. Hall. This is so Lie group theory and representations. And I will be living in these two minds of whether to do more just computational and physics oriented things or try to bring out the basic theory of Lie groups. So the actual theory of Lie groups does get quite complicated. Mainly it just becomes, it does become complicated. The other book we follow, of course, continues to be Hassani's, but I think chapter 25, if I am not mistaken. So in Hassani's book, chapter 23 is discrete groups. Then chapter 24, he jumps on to manifolds and differential geometry. Because as I said, the little speech I gave earlier about the continuum and what is meant by continuum. So to get it all out of the way, he launches full-fledged into differential geometry, and in the next chapter he comes to this. So it becomes slightly difficult to adopt his chapter completely because he is relying on some of the things he has developed in the previous chapter. But if you can skip by or believe some of the theorems that are done later, then that is also a good reference. So these two are the mathematical references. And interestingly, Hassani has exercise number 20, in the last exercises, where he gives the whole recipe for the what I call the complicated theory of Lie groups. It's given as an exercise because it is too difficult to really do it in the chapter, and he probably feels unfair to leave it out. So he has just a sophisticated way of introducing it, and which relies on chapter 24 terminology. Brian C. Hall tries to strike a balance in trying to not go as deep into all of differential geometry, but develop just some definitions and theorems which will take care of the essentials of Lie group theory. So what I will say is that because I am doing all this is to say I am doing some selective presentation, and you may have to reread back and forth to see what is the whole picture, because I am not able to give the full picture. If we give that, then it will become a complete mathematics course. Okay, so I just want to, so what is good about mathematics books is that they bring out what are the assumptions, what are definitions, which means we have to propose those ideas, and then what are theorems that can be proved. So these things are separated out instead of it all being one package as done in physical reasoning. So Brian Hall does go, in fact I have read some discussion in various fora that says Brian Hall's book is in fact a good balance between very rigorous books on Lie group theory and something that physicists can use. So Brian Hall develops this idea of one parameter subgroups and basically as a definition. And note the most important thing here is this, which is rather ambitious, to say that you have an arbitrarily parameterized space, even one dimensional, but such that the value of A at sum of parameters is exactly group multiplication of the corresponding this. This is one of the most important part of the. So we define a one parameter subgroup like this with, as I said, the most mischievous property number 3, which takes care of lot of the complications by insisting on some very big connection. And this is actually at the heart of Lie group theory, that the structure of the whole group gets defined by what happens near identity element. So now the claim is that if you have a one parameter subgroup which satisfies these things, then you can always get it as an exponent of some quote generator times a real parameter t. So with t a real parameter. The next thing is a definition which is again a loaded definition, anticipating what we want to prove. A Lie algebra is a set of matrices X is the set of all matrices, and I am sorry to use this Gothic G, equal to a list X, such that E equal exponent of Tx belongs to G. For all real T. So this Gothic small g is has a strong correspondence. So G is group and G is the algebra. So algebra is something you exponentiate to get the whole group. This definition looks rather innocuous because it simply insists that Lie algebra is the set of all possible matrices X, so that exponentiating them you get elements of G. It does not talk of any kind of exhaustivity. It doesn't say all of G is exhausted by X in this way, but the properties that we define for one parameter groups and so on will then lead to that kind of exhaustiveness. So some of the other theorems I will postpone for the later, but right now we just work with these definitions of a one parameter group. The idea that a one parameter group can always be got from an element x and by exponentiation, and if you took all possible such x in the group, then you will be able to recover then they we define to be the algebra all the matrices x such that exponentiating them we get elements of the group G. Now with this we come back to our SO3 SU2 discussion. Well, not immediately, but some more. Back towards SO3 and SU2. And now we say some statement definitions from topology, which is that a simply connected group. So we had defined simply connected. We had defined what is connected. Those are the ones that are or path connected. Where you can connect any one point to any other by having a map of a piece of the real line into that set. So if you can parameterize, find a series of points continuously going from one point to the other point, then we call this a connected set. Now we claim that simply connected groups are uniquely determined by their algebra. So we had defined what is connected, and then we had also defined simply connected. As the ones where the paths can be shrunk, all closed loops can be shrunk. Shrunk to a point. So you can roughly see what is the relationships between these ideas, because if you have a map like this, if you have some A of t, this t is a variable which varies continuously. So this idea of connected and simply connected goes over to setting up such subgroups to be able to set up or identify such subgroups. And so when a group is simply connected, it would mean that all kinds of one parameter subgroups that you can find in it, or one parameter paths you can find in it, can be shrunk to a point. But shrunk to a point will mean that the identity is always, if you can shrink to any one point and if the group is connected, then you can always connect it to identity. So you will be always able to go from any arbitrary region of the group to the identity, and therefore to the structure of the group near the identity, which is essentially the algebra. It is d by d group at the parameter value equal to 0, which gives the identity. As you remember, we all defined in fact one parameter subgroups to be ones, so that once you set t equal to 0, you get the identity of the GLNC. So this is how the various ideas are going to be connected, but as I said, you will have to reread them later in context. Today I want to move on to doing the SO3 and SU2 connection. So much we have said about what is one parameter subgroup, what is an algebra. It is a set of matrices that can generate all of the group through exponentiation. And we have said something about all simply connected groups can be uniquely determined by their algebra. Now we see some interesting connection between SO3 and SU2.